Hey guys, tonight we're drifting into the cold, breath-stealing truth of a Viking sea voyage. The kind of crossing that turns bravado into blisters and poetry into rope burns. Forget the fantasy. No horned helmets, no cozy cabins, just wet wool, hard bread, and miles of North Atlantic that don't care about your feelings. Paradoxically, it's perfect for sleep. Calm narration, soft oar strokes, and a slow burn story about why most of us wouldn't last a day out there. If this odd, soothing corner of history fits your vibe, gently tap like and subscribe, only if you truly enjoy it. Now, lower the lights, let the room cool a touch, and close your eyes while we set the sail. And drop a comment for me. Where are you watching from? And what time is it on your end? I love seeing our little night fleet scattered across the map. You wake to tar and tide, that sharp, smoky perfume that crawls into wool and won't let go. Cold nips your knuckles before memory wakes your courage, and the fjord breathes like an animal. Rope fibers creak, gulls argue theology, and the longship waits, lean, ribbed, hungry for horizons. I put your hand on the gunwale so you feel the grain, a living map of clever trees. This isn't romance, it's rehearsal, one heartbeat before risk gets a vote. Call it what it is, the first step of a Viking sea voyage you can actually survive. You learn the hull by touch, not lecture. Clinker planks overlapping like scales that shrug off chop. Pitch fills the seams, sticky as gossip, and twice as protective sealing wood against the North Atlantics. Jokes, run your palm along the rivets. Each iron kiss says someone cared enough to argue with winter. Bend and trace the keel. Think of spine and balance. Think of falling and getting back up. Ships are just disciplined trees, taught to remember the wind the right way. You're here to memorize that discipline before the horizon tests your memory. Crew gathers quiet as snowfall. Oarsman, a steersman, two traders with laughter like hammers. You smell bread in someone's bag, dried fish in another, butter that hopes to see tomorrow. A boy carries a raven cage and pretends he isn't important. Birds don't care about pride. A woman checks the sails. All panels, palms searching for lies, eyes searching for weather. Nobody says, hero. Heroes get seasick too, and heroes still bail. We shake hands with nods, because names matter less than rhythm once the oars start singing. Rig first, boast never. You learn the sail by its moods, not its shape. Wool drinks wind differently than linen. It swells then steadies, like a chest remembering courage. We hold the yard, while the steersman squints at a sky that hasn't made up its mind. Voyage one, Manliuminji. Lines whisper over calloused palms, a cat's cradle of order tightening into purpose. You taste lanolin and salt, and the iron hint of your own nerves. Keep breathing. Wind notices when you hold your breath. The fjord lays out omens without charging a fee. Ripples feathering wrong, cloud bellies like bruises. Ice clinks along the rock like a drunk poet looking for metaphors he won't remember. A seal watches with judge eyes, then decides you're not interesting enough to doom. We float a chip of bread and see which way it lies. It's ridiculous, and it works. Old men on shore nod or don't. That's the report you trust. If the water refuses your reflection, you postpone the North Atlantic Viking crossing. Now cargo, because hunger makes fools and cold makes liars, load smart, or your soup. Casks of water, lashed centerline, not outboard because balance is worth more than bragging rights. Barley dried fish, smoked lamb, butter sealed like treasure, a sack of onions to bully scurvy, a skin of whey, a crock of skyer, something sweet enough to bribe despair at dusk. Tools adse, auger spare rivets, needles, tar, and the prayer you won't admit you packed. Wait, low, tie low, keep the ship's thirst for trim sharper than your own. Oars out then quiet. Feel the looms flex, teaching your arms a new alphabet. Stroke isn't muscle first, it's timing, a choir you join by listening, not shouting. The steersman taps the steering oar like a metronome. Your ribs learn the beat. Spray salts your lips and tells your pride to sit down and let your back work. You're part of a creature now. Hull, wind, hands, and a rumour of land. When the fjord widens its mouth, you stop being a passenger in your own bones. We practice failure on purpose, because the ocean loves improv more than mastery. Reefing drill. 3 moves to shrink the sail, 4 to keep the ship from sulking. Bailing drill. Pass the bucket like gossip you don't want to own for long. Mast lashings checked with fingers, not eyes. Eyes flirt, fingers confirm. Sea anchor coiled and ready, because stopping is sometimes the bravest verb. If this feels fussy now, it will feel merciful later. Navigation begins before departure. Your brain is the first instrument. You learn the sun sees and angles by cheek and shadow, because tools fail and skin remembers. A sunstone, clear Iceland spar, waits wrapped like a secret. It finds light hiding in clouds. We review the birds. Kittiwakes mean nothing, but land birds mean hope with feathers. Driftwood species, whale roots swell, sets that argue with your keel, all go on the map behind your eyes. Call it folklore if you like. It's still how a Viking sea voyage finds tomorrow. We kneel by the bow, not to gods exactly, but to gravity and stubbornness. Someone pours ale to the water, and someone grins, because superstition sleeps warmer than arrogance. You touch the deck with 2 fingers and promise to bail, steer haul, and shut up when told. Oaths are just habits vocalized. Habits are what carry you past midnight. Ivan blinks sideways, unimpressed, then agrees to ride along anyway. Blessings done, which is to say. Teamwork rehearsed one more time. Push-off is oddly quiet. No horns, no poetry, just shove, step, balance, breathe. The shore shrinks into a rumour. You can still solve by swimming if you're foolish. We take the wind by degrees, like speaking to a proud uncle, not a child. Sail fills oars, ship hull, hums, even your teeth hear it. Your stomach negotiates with motion and decides to pay in installments. You look back once, it looks back 0 times. Out past the fjord's last opinion, the sea forgets manners and remembers truth. Swells heave like patient beasts. The bow climbs, pauses, and pronounces a wet syllable. Cold drills down your sleeves, and you add a layer without ceremony. Lanolin smoke, tar sweetness, fish cold air, braid into a flavour you'll never misplace. You start to laugh because terror's first cousin is awe, and awe is useful. Think of land as a rumour. Think of rhythm as a fact. Don't expect glory on day 1. Expect chores, ache, and a horizon that refuses to explain itself. You will nap between oar spells, dream of bread, wake to rope, and forget your last complaint. You'll learn which crewmate sings low and which one bails like a poet with deadlines. You'll forgive the cold because the ship forgives your mistakes if you pay attention. By nightfall, the sky will own more stars than your language owns names. And tomorrow we'll talk storms, birds, and the unhelpful honesty of the North Atlantic Viking crossing. You pass the last skerries and feel the fjord unclasp its fingers. The sea doesn't say hello. It sizes you up. Land shrinks into a rumour. And your heartbeat tries to do math it was never taught. This is the first honest mile of a Viking sea voyage, where courage stops posing and starts rowing. Salt needles your lips, tar sweetens the air. Wool drinks the cold like a debt it plans to repay. I keep you busy on purpose, hands working quiet so thoughts don't get loud. Out here, attention is warmth, and warmth is survival. Trim first, poetry later. You read the sail as if it's a stubborn uncle. You don't shout, you coax. Ease the sheet till the luff just stops whispering. haul an inch. Give a breath. Listen again. Angles matter. Close haul buys progress. Beam reach buys speed. Broad reach buys relief. The steering oar speaks in pressure, not words. Hips hear it before fingers confess. You'll oversteer twice, then learn the ship wants curves more than corners. The trick is rhythm. Your hands conduct, the hull sings, the wind decides to join. Now swell, the sea's second language, older than wind and twice as blunt. 2 wave trains cross swords beneath you. Local chop slaps, long swell nods. You aim the bow a hair off the dominant set, so the keel stops sulking. When the crest passes, you breathe out. When the trough arrives, you let your knees agree. It looks like balance. It's actually timing disguised as humility. Once your spine learns the beat, your stomach follows with reluctant respect. Navigation begins in your skin before it graduates to tools. Hold your palm to the sun at noon, and mark the shadow's honesty on a little board. Clouds go treacherous, skin does not. Face remembers angles long after eyes grow tired. A sunstone, clear spar, waits for overcast moods. Rotate it till the glare softens into direction. You don't brag about it. Bragging scares luck. Call it folklore, if you like. It still keeps you pointed where tomorrow lives. Night is exam time, and the sky brings all the teachers. Polaris sits like a patient nail. If it wanders, that means you did. Orion rises with lectures. Cassiopeia gossips, the Milky Way paints an aisle to humility. We keep time by song, oar-stroke verses, Baylor choruses, a soft refrain for trimming. Hour by hour, stars slide. You track the drift with your jaw set and your shoulders calm. When clouds erase the board, you steer by swell, wind on cheek, and the ship's quiet memory. Birds turn into footnotes that matter. Fulmars mean nothing. Gannets mean shells. A land bird out here is a letter from soil. A whiff of peat or pine under the salt is geography. You can't see yet. A blade of grass on a feather, a beetle in the bilge, a stubborn fly at dusk. Evidence, not miracles. Driftwood tells you which river gossiped last. Kelp tangles argue for reefs ahead. On a North Atlantic Viking crossing, the smartest eyes are attached to wings. Weather sets traps with silk threads first. Mare's tails, high cirrus, sketch finds for arrogance. A mackerel sky finds everybody. A halo around sun or moon says, moisture marching, reef early and brag later. Barometer, your ear against the strakes. Wood tightens when pressure sulks. When wind backs against the clock, you rehearse reef knots until boredom blushes. A Viking Sea Voyage rewards cowards of the correct kind. Work turns into a watch, and watches turn into culture. 2 at bow, 2 at bailers, 4 on oars, 1 on the Raven's sarcasm. You eat when the ship says yes. Dried fish, barley bread, butter carved like medicine. Seasick? You row through it. The horizon forgives moving penance faster than lying prayers. We trade crew jokes for kinder ones before dusk. Laughter quiets stomachs and tempers. Sleep happens in slices no thicker than a hymn. Maintenance is a sermon you preach with tar. Seams weep. You warm the pitch and insert faith between planks. Rivets sing different when they sulk. A quick tap hears the grudge. Bailers move like a rumour you're eager to be rid of. Fast, simple, forgotten. Ropes get a tallow kiss. Oar leathers a little love. Mast lashings, a suspicious friend's stare. Fix small things at once. The ocean majors in extra credit. Living on board is a thesis on discomfort with footnotes of grace. No fire on deck. We don't negotiate with embers when the table is wood. Meals cold but honest. Way keeps thirst civil. Sky reminds bones of dairy summer. You keep socks dry in a bag, like they're the last saints on earth. Sleep under an awning of stitched wool that pretends to be a roof. You dream of bread that steam remembers, then wake to tar. that never forgets. Your body becomes a catalogue of minor injuries that feel like personality traits. Blisters meet tar, rope burns meet wool grease, salt sores meet stubbornness. We wash hands with cold water and a swear, then laugh because the swear worked better. Tallow at the heel, lanolin at the knuckle, a ribbon of cloth at pride. If your back complains, the steering oar teaches it a different complaint with better manners. By day 3, pain becomes background music. You stop singing along to. Mindset is the last instrument you tune before weather gets loud. You measure progress in gulls that give up, following in the way coffee-colored water fades to steel. You talk less, listen more, and store small beauty like hoarded warmth. Light through spray, a raven blinking yes. Monotony tries you at noon, or forgives you at midnight when the sky spills diamonds. You're not conquering anything, you're collaborating with something ancient and honest. The first squall doesn't announce itself with thunder. It whispers in the sail like a lie getting confident. You feel the sheet sharpen in your hands. Then the bow begins answering questions you didn't ask. Brief. I say, not louder, just closer. And you reach for the earring with a prayer you won't admit. 3 good motions. Ease. Gather tie. Make the sail smaller than your ego, and twice as useful. Wind veers. The wool panels harden into muscle. The hull relaxes because you finally listened. Out here, humility is the cheapest insurance you'll ever buy on a Viking sea voyage. Rain turns to needles, then to glass, then to gossip slapping your cheeks for bad decisions. You keep your knees soft, your jaw looser, your breath longer than the wave you're riding. The steering oar talks in pressure and insult. You answer with curves, never corners. A wrong angle, and the bow digs. A right angle, and the ship hums like a big cat. You're not fighting the sea. You're editing your behavior until it approves of the draft. When the gust eases, you tie the reef flatter, because peace is when work begins. Seasickness attacks, courage is knees first. You learn to row through nausea like a tax you pay. Eyes on the horizon, hands on the loom, humour on standby. Laughter is a fine emetic. We ration conversation to short, honest lines. Breathe, pull, your fine bucket. Salt on your tongue becomes a metronome. If you can count, you can continue. You apologize to the ocean, and it forgives nothing, which somehow helps. By the time your stomach admits the new regime, your arms already live here. When the world goes white, fog thick as wool, you steer by cheek, knee, and the ship's memory. Swell still, tells the truth, even when sight won't. You aim a hair off the dominant set. A raven goes up like a question. If it hesitates, land isn't worth the ink yet. We listen for surf with a lead line ready tallow on the wait to taste the bottom. Peat scent. River. Outflow. Kelp tugging the keel. Clues begin composing sentences. Silence becomes a map. You read it with patient ribs and practical fear. Water always wins arguments about staying. You win arguments about bailing. Buckets move hand to hand like gossip you don't want to keep, fast and forgetful. We stage a little dam with spare planks and a cloak where a seam sulks. Tar warms over a shield with a stubborn candle. Rivets get tapped like suspects. You learn the smell of wood that's merely damp versus wood. Taking it personally, fix small leaks. Now or get a lecture in capital letters at midnight. Cold travels up your sleeves like a rumour. You add a layer before pride drafts you. Lanolin on knuckles, tallow. On heels, dry socks guarded in a pouch like sacred relics. You stretch without theatrics, shoulder, hip, wrist. So joints keep voting. Yes, food is fuel, not feast. Barley bread with butter, dried fish that remembers summer. A mouthful of whey keeps thirst from getting heroic. Sky flatters bones into patience. On a North Atlantic Viking crossing, comfort is arithmetic, not poetry. Storm proper now. Windbacks, pressure sulks, sky dents. We heave to on a double reef, bow at a courteous angle to the waves, sail small and stubborn. The steering oar holds you like a good argument. The hull stops sprinting toward trouble. Sea, anchor, ready drogue, coiled lashings jealous tight. You wait without surrendering. Someone tells a short, unfunny joke that saves the room anyway. Endurance is mostly administration performed calmly under bad lighting. Night inside weather is a cathedral with broken windows and excellent acoustics. Polaris hides, so you steer by swell and how rain stitches your hood. We keep watch by song again, low verses that measure minutes when eyes count. Lantern hooded, flame, cautious logs, silent except for useful gossip. Every hour, hand on mast, hand on lashings, hand on friend, all report present. You discover that fear grows bored if you give it chores. At squall's shoulder, wind shifts from insult to advice. That's your moment. Shake one reef, not both. Test the sheet like you're greeting a wary dog. Ease into speed, as if it might change its mind. It often does. The keel starts writing smoother sentences. The bow stops mispronouncing the waves. You bail the last sulk from the bilge and thank the bucket by leaving it alone. Progress returns in quiet steps, not speeches. You navigate the morning by debris and birds with better calendars than yours. Driftwood of spruce. Must be pushed from a colder cousin. Adjust your guess right. Gannets with their arrowed dives mean shelves. You give them space to perform their physics. A land bird flutters past on an exhausted thesis. Offer a hand. It refuses. Respect that. Sunstone out from its pouch. You tease light from cloud, like a secret. You're not lost. You're merely unverified, which is fixable. Crew culture saves more lives than heroics. We pass warmth the way we pass buckets. One checks lashings without being asked. One keeps the raven's sarcasm fed. One trades crude jokes for kind ones because kindness lasts longer in rain. We praise specifics. True knot, neat coil, clean reef, because vagueness doesn't heat fingers. A hand on a shoulder travels farther than a lecture in weather like this. Discipline is just love translated into tasks with deadlines. By dusk the sea returns your grin with a smaller frown. That's a contract. Sail fuller. Oars shipped the hull, humming its lower, happier note. Clouds drift like tired sheep. A pewter sun signs off without drama. You chew in silence because chewing is gratitude in another dialect. Far off, a petrel writes punctuation across the horizon you're trying to believe in. Sleep will taste better tonight, and tomorrow the ocean will test different parts of you. Currents, ice, and the way decisions get thin when the days start looking the same. Would you like me to keep this cadence for the next stretch? Land announces itself in whispers. First, heat on the wind, resin, damp earth hiding under salt. Your nose gets the message before your eyes admit the smear on the horizon. Bird calls tighten, their roots stack like arrows, pointing where maps don't. After days of open grammar, the coast speaks in fast, tricky dialects. On a Viking sea voyage, this is where confidence either matures or drowns. So you slow your mind first, then the ship. Birds become your briefings with wings. Fulmars keep you honest. Gannets dive like thrown spears over shelves. Often with a beak full of fish is a fisherman's weather report. When a tired land bird circles you twice, land is a promise, not a rumour. Ravens judge from the yard and blink when you notice what they already knew. Words iron. Follow pattern, not excitement. Excitement trips on reefs. Sound arrives as proof. surf muttering behind the curtain of haze. We heave the lead line. Tallow on its tip tastes sand, not deep. Water shifts colour from iron to tea, shot through with silt. Kelp ropes snag the keel like hands from below, asking for manners. Driftwood speaks dialects, spruce says, north rivers, birch says nearer. All of it composes a paragraph your hull can read. Coasts are liars at dusk and dawn, so you make them tell the truth. Reef a hand early, arrogance pays in splinters. Ease the sheet until the sail forgives your nerves. Post a bow hand with a pole and a prayer they use. The steering oar becomes a pen. You write curves, not exclamation points. Land is beautiful and bored of funerals. Don't add yours. Bars and shoals set traps where rivers meet, appetites. Breakers feather on, then right, then vanish, like guilty thoughts. You look for the gutter in the white water, the darker lane that breathes. Current leans, wind argues. You choose to agree with both in small ways. If the sun glares, you wait. Patience is cheaper than repairs. On a North Atlantic coast, tomorrow exists. Use it. Heaving to outside buys thinking time without asking permission. Sea anchor rides drogue, hums bow held at a decent angle to temper. You eat a mouthful, breathe like someone with choices, watch the set. The bowhand counts waves aloud, so timing becomes culture. When the train eases, you test the bar in half steps, never heroics. If it turns rude again, you back out with dignity and live longer. River mouths smell like stories, peat, leaf rot, cold sweetness under brine. Silt paints the water brown-green. Seabirds stitch along the edges. Bars hide in that soup like bad advice, so you confirm with lead, not hope. Send the lightest crew to the bow. Heavy feet write deeper mistakes. If breakers speak all at once, you don't interrupt. Circle, regroup, re-choose. Land won't move, your impatience will. Rocky coasts demand different manners and more fenders. You hunt for a lee cove where swell forgets its swagger. Anchor. Up swell. Pay out scope, said the hook with a humble pulse. Bow to sea, stern to comfort. Spare anchor ready like a second thought. Tide range here writes in meters. Tire your pride higher than you think. A loud coast teaches quiet hands. When beaching's the play, you choreograph it like a pilgrimage. Unship the steering board on starboard so sand won't eat it. Oars ready as brakes. Men at bow jump when feet find honesty. Jingle hisses. The keel kisses land. The hull sighs in languages of tree and tar. Rollers under ribs. Anchors as dogs on short leashes. Cargo lighter by teamwork. You trade ocean timing for shore muscle in one breath. Camp grows from sailcloth and gratitude. Mast becomes tent pole. Wool becomes roof. Smoke finally earns its keep. Water gets boiled like a prayer you can drink. Bread softens near flame. Fish remembers summer. Butter forgives everyone. A watch goes up because land has its own thieves and weather. You sleep near, but not on the ship. Wood likes rest, too. The danger wasn't the miles. It was the last 100 yards. Coasts kill the careless more often than mid-ocean does. You learn to read birds, taste bottoms, and distrust pretty water. That humility is a medal nobody sees, but everybody survives. The North Atlantic Viking crossing favours boring professionals over shiny legends. Tonight, your breathing matches the surf without flinching. Tomorrow has choices: skirt the coast, trade, mend, or push for a farther headland. Ropes need love, rivets want tapping, and the raven demands breakfast negotiations. You'll mark the tide with a stick, and the hour with bread. The hull will dry, then ask politely for more tar. We'll lift the sail when the wind writes something worth reading. And when we do, we'll talk fog banks that pretend to be islands and strangers who might sell you a map. Or need one. You arrive square-shouldered from the sea, but a harbour is its own battlefield with softer knives. The air changes temperature and accent. Pitch smoke, fish rot, fresh bread, and 3 kinds of ambition. On a Viking sea voyage, you learn quickly. Land requires etiquette the ocean never bothered teaching. Tie off under watchful eyes. Admiration, tolls, and thieves all look identical at first glance. Your hands itch to relax. Don't. Coiled rope relaxes into trouble faster than pride. Breathe, soften your jaw, and let the town introduce itself before your coin does. Repairs go first, because nothing negotiates like a sound hull. We flip the sail flat on the beach. Patch wool with quiet stitches and ruthless honesty. Tar warms in a pot that never tips. Oakum gets teased into seams like secrets. Rivets answer to the hammer's questions. Clean ring, clean conscience, clean night's sleep. All leathers drink tallow. The steering board gets a new lash. The mast wedge learns manners. Every fix you postpone becomes a sermon. The North Atlantic loves to preach loudly. Trade begins with theatre you pretend isn't theatre. Lay out furs, walrus, ivory, soapstone bowls, and a small bag of glass beads like gossip. Locals counter with honey, grain, iron billets, cloth that looks smarter than your words. Weights appear suspiciously standard, then less so. You smile like arithmetic is your religion. Silver rings get chopped, tested on a tooth, and tested again on a rock. Language is hands. Price is patience. Insult is optional, but often rehearsed. You eat while bargaining because hunger makes fools and generous saints. Dried fish softens in stew. Onions bully the salt. Butter forgives everyone. Cup of thin ale becomes diplomacy with foam. Spill a little, for luck you can name. You learn 3 numbers of their tongue and 2 proverbs they loan you with a grin. Laughter moves coin faster than threats when the garrison isn't looking. You leave the table lighter in goods, heavier in stories you'll edit later. Not all markets love you. Some only tolerate your audacity. Tolls arrive as friendly men with spears, who confuse fees with blessings. You nod, pay small, argue medium, and save large for the captain's stare. A priest scowls at your arm ring. You answer with a gift to his kitchen. Children touch the ship, measure myth by fingertip, and run to report fairly. Rumours tie knots faster than you. Mind which ones you untie. Lodging ashore tempts, but the ship sleeps more honestly than most roofs. We pitch the awning by the keel, string the sail as a wind argument that we win. Fire lives downwind, never near tar. Warmth should not become a headline. You lay cloaks on dry boards, socks under your shirt, knife under the friendly side. 2 on watch, 2 at sleep, and 1 pretending not to listen to both. Harbours lull. Harbours also borrow unattended things forever. Diplomacy is a full-body craft. Posture, hands, and the number of teeth you show. A gift goes first. A bead string to the steward's daughter. A whetstone to the blacksmith. Then a question so simple it refuses to be lied to. Where does ice break first? You map their answers onto your ribs. Cliff, shoal, good water, bad temper. Some men trade maps, others trade warnings. Both spend the same. Choose allies you can row with tomorrow, not legends you can toast tonight. Religion hangs in the air like weather you can tack around. Cross by the wharf, a god pole on the hill, and a shrine that smells of beeswax dare you to blink. You keep your own rights quiet. A crumb to the water, a palm to the prow. A word nobody owns. They ask for oaths. You offer promises with verbs, not nouns, and keep them. Trust here is braided, coin, courtesy, and the speed you keep your temper. Break anyone, and the other 2 fray by sunset. Law comes on feet, not paper. The local thing meeting claps you with rules older than your ship's tree. No drawn blades within so many paces. No drunk songs after the third bell. No trading iron for iron. You repeat the rules back until the speaker gets bored of being important. A hostage sometimes changes hands. Call him guest and feed him well. Peace is fed like a dog. Neglect makes it feral. Repairs Part 2. The jobs you only notice when the tide leaves. We heal the ship's great barnacles that wrote their little novels on our ribs. Keelstones get checked. Gudgeons kissed with grease planks, eyed for sulking grains. You listen for the hollow thud that says, "Replace me before I replace your plans." Pitch hardens into black honesty. Your hands become maps of competent burns. When the tide returns, she rises easier because you did your homework. Night in a strange port belongs to people who practice quiet. Lantern hooded, coin counted gossip stitched into useful cloth. You mark the wind on a scrap, the tide on a stick, the watch on your bones. Snoring from the keel after from the tavern, a fight that ends politely, civilization at work. Someone whistles a tune that remembers home. You let it pass through you. Tomorrow's weather is already writing. You fall asleep, learning the font. Morning tastes like smoke and agreements. You're stocked, patched, warned, and slightly richer in the ways that matter offshore. Harbour gratitude looks like a clean departure. No wake against their boats, no trash on their stones. You shake hands with nods. The raven inspects the wind. The steersman forgives the shore. Sail goes up, like a promise you intend to keep this time. And just beyond the headland, the North Atlantic Viking crossing resumes its blunt conversation. Currents, shifting, fog rehearsing, and a long, patient blue that always wants the last word. The coast tempts with a safer face, but its teeth are underwater and punctual. Headlands throw long shadows made of water, races, overfalls, standing waves with opinions. You read whirl lines the way you read a frown. Distance, angle, likely apology. Gulls hover in place where updrafts bloom. Below them, the sea is lifting furniture. On a Viking sea voyage, you learn this early. The shoreline is hospitality with knives. So you slow not from fear, but from respect that sounds like math. Tide tables live in mouths here. Fishers, monks, old women, with nets for hands. You measure trust by how specific their warnings feel. Half bell after the second ebb. The rule is simple and stubborn. Ride with, never across, a current that's showing off. We time the gate like a ceremony, letting impatience burn off as steam. Your jaw unclenches when the water's pitch drops a note you can hum. Courage becomes choreography. Wait, line up, lean, then go. A headland race is the sea's version of bad cobblestones at a gallop. Waves shorten, steepen, then try to borrow your keel for art. Weave, a hand, center weight, and aim just off the nastiest grin. The bowl climbs a stair that moves. Your knees convert panic into springs. You count 3 steep, 1 long, breathe on the long pull on the 3. By the 5th, set rhythm replaces superstition, and both help. Eddies hide in the lee like quiet markets selling discounted calm. Slide in too soon and you get spun. Too late and you pay full price in spray. We use a cliff seam as a ruler and a kelp streamer as a clock. The steering oar feels lighter, then honest. That's your cue to thank physics. You eat a mouthful because sugar is strategy, not dessert. Small mercies refuel longer miles than boasts ever do. Shoals announce themselves by colour if the light is sober. Tea brown over sand, bottle green over weed, pewter where it wants you gone. Kemtabai. A gannet's arrow dive draws punctuation over a shelf you shouldn't proofread. Lead line out, tallow on tip. Sand tastes polite, shell tastes sharp, mud tastes home. We speak in quiet syllables. 2. and a half shoaling. Numbers are warmer than prayers when wood is negotiating with stone. Fog rolls in off the shoulder, like a monk with an agenda. Sound inflates, surf shouts from everywhere, gulls become ventriloquists. We ship a raven. He flies a paragraph and edits our direction with silence. Bell on the bow thumps a heartbeat you can steer to without romance. Swell still points truer than eyes. Your cheek reads wind like braille. Progress measures in breath, lengths not boat lengths. And that's fine. Rivers are doorways with doormen named Sandbar and Opinion. Bars break on the sides and whisper in the middle. Find the gutter, not the glory. We watch for the darker lane, where foam forgets to brag. When the set leans across the mouth, you aim up current like a grown-up. Oars out as brakes, sail as throttle, patience as pilot. Every mistake here is public. Every success looks boring. Perfect. Dot harbors gossip in timbers, creeks that mean honest, creeks that mean lawsuit. We test moorings with humble tugs, not hero yanks that make enemies. Scope generous, anchor canted to suit the wind's childhood trauma. A stern line to a rock says, we respect your moods, rocks respect respect. Lantern hooded deck quiet, knives sleeping under friendly ribs. Shore smells of bread and tolls. We keep both at arm's length till dawn. Coasting legs stitch civilization into the wild with lumpy thread. We trade news for charts, grain for iron, warnings for smiles. Children count our oars, elders count our seasons. Both are right in different currencies. Your handwriting improves on the mental map. Headland with a scar, cove with a temper. A Viking sea voyage isn't lines on water, it's people on edges. Edges teach accuracy, and accuracy sleeps warmer. Between headlands, the wind sulks and flirts. We reef and shake like modest actors. Sail bellies when a valley opens. We ease rather than grin at speed. The steering oar's pressure tells you about cliffs you can't yet see. When swell lengthens, a gate is near. When it tatters, cliffs rehearse drama. You learn to believe in the air's gossip before the eye confirms. Belief saves wood. Wood saves stories. Stories save nerves. Evening, anchors are exams in softer fonts. We choose a cove that turns its back to tonight's quarrel. Sound the bowl, lay the hook. Feel the set travel up your bones. Kettle on socks, dry tar pot, cooling like a well-behaved threat. We mark tide with a stick and pride with a smaller one. Sleep arrives because everything else was arranged to invite it. Dawn draws a red line under the coast. You sign only if it's fair. If weather writes rudeness, we wait. If it writes possibility, we spell our names. The North Atlantic Viking crossing doesn't care for agendas, but it respects rituals. We check lashings, touch the prow, feed the bird, and shorten our wishes. Beyond the next headland, open water rehearses a bigger argument. Shall we slip the gate and chase blue miles again, currents, whales, and the long hum of nowhere finding you? The blue goes on so far, it starts to feel like a religion you didn't mean to join. No headlands, no gossiping cliffs, just swell, wind, and the longship's patient grammar. This is the honest centre of a Viking sea voyage, where chores become faith. You measure progress in the way gulls give up, and clouds change fonts. Work shrinks to rhythm. Haul, ease, bail, breathe. Grin when the spray sneaks a slap. Out here, attention is warmth, and warmth is permission to keep going. Watches keep time, the way monks keep prayers, quietly, relentlessly, together. 2 hours on the steering oar, 2 on oars, 2 with the bailor's gossip. We count songs instead of minutes. Verses become sand in an hourglass of lungs. A water clock would sulk here. Stars are better accountants of patience. Polaris nails the sky. Cassiopeia flips like a page. Your jaw remembers the drift. You don't pass time, you row it from one shoulder to the other. Sleep becomes a slice you earn, not a kingdom you own. Under the stitched wool awning, you're a parcel of bones wrapped in tar-sweet dreams. Cloak over chest, pelt at feet, dry socks hoarded like saints against despair. You face leeward so breath, as manners and snores blow where shame can't hear. A shoulder for a pillow, a coil of rope for spine, a palm for quiet inventory. You learn to wait kindly, because someone else just earned your spot. Food turns from romance to arithmetic that tastes like honesty. Barley bread, dried fish butter, the colour of promises kept in summer. Onions bullied into rations, to make scurvy think twice about showing up. Whey sipped, warmish skyr spooned like an apology, to tired bones. No fire. Wood is the furniture. We don't cook the furniture. Small bites often never hero feasts. Endurance hates theatrics. Maintenance is meditation with tar under the fingernails. You warm pitch till it flows like the truth, then persuade it into sulking seams. Rivets get tapped until their ring says, present in a clean voice, or let us drink tallow. Mast lashings get the suspicious friend's stare. A frayed splice becomes a lesson you finish before it tells a story at midnight. The sea grades on a curve. You pass by fixing what boasted yesterday. Hygiene is a treaty with salt, not a war you can win. Rinse hands in cold water and a good swear. Both disinfect pride. Lanolin guards your knuckles. Tallow bribes heels into behaving. A saltwater rag cheats at clean. In all the places that itch at 2 a.m. Lecturing ritual is over the side with a rope and humility for a harness. We laugh just enough to keep dignity from getting seasick. Calm arrives like a cat, soft, indifferent on your chest when you're busy. Sail slats, then sighs. Oars come out for penance, disguised as progress. We row by pairs, then fours, then the choir, until the keel remembers ambition. You hunt for cat's paws, the tiny ruffles where wind rehearses a comeback. Sunstone tests for a shy sun, cheek tests for a shyer breeze. Patience is a muscle. Today you add more weight and fewer excuses. Wildlife becomes the footnotes that pass your oral exam. Pilot, whales roll like commas. You read their route like punctuation for currents. Dolphins stitch laughter into your bow wave and invoice you in morale. A petrel skims like a rumour at ankle height. Storm wrens rarely lie. When a tired thrush lands on the yard, you learn to be a perch, not a poet. Every creature is a data point with better eyes than yours. Navigation during sameness leans on memory you keep oiling. Swell from the west means you're arguing with Greenland's breath. A faint peak note under the salt is a river mouth writing you a postcard. Cloud stacks that favour. One horizon are cliffs rehearsing behind the curtain. You keep the mental chart, tidy, errors erased, guesses penciled, pride sanded. A North Atlantic Viking crossing rewards boring clarity more than brave confusion. Repairs at sea are a play you rehearse till the lines feel like bones. A sprung plank gets a wedge's kiss. Oakum teased, pitch poured like forgiveness. If the yard sulks, we shift apparel, change its mood with a different knot. Cracked loom lends a splint. The spare rivets come out like calm soldiers. Nothing squeaks afterward. Squeaks invite weather to write its name on you. Competence is the only incense the ocean actually smells. Morale is a stove you feed with tiny, deliberate sticks. Short stories about ridiculous goats, a song that fits the oarstroke like skin. Praise in specifics. True reef, clean coil, good look on that swell. A quiet hand on a shoulder moves heat, farther than a loud speech. We carve a tally on the thwart, one honest day, then forget to brag. Joy here isn't loud, it's accurate. Night returns with all the stars you can't afford to count. Lantern hooded bell on the half watch, the sea humming in a lower key. You breathe in, fours out, in sixes, matching the ship's patient lungs. Tar, wool, salt, and the faint vanilla of worn rope make a perfume you'll miss ashore. You sleep, not from escape, but from alignment with a moving world. And when weather decides to test the syllabus again, cold rain, cross seas, ice on the lines, you'll already be warmed by the habits that pass for luck. Rain begins as a rumor on your hood, then upgrades to a thesis with footnotes. It crawls down your sleeves like tiny thieves and files a complaint in your bones. You don't fight it, you file countersuits, hood lower, cloak tighter, mittens half off. Breath becomes fog, you can edit. You choose shorter sentences. Tar and wet wool mix into a perfume. You will miss someday, somehow. Welcome to weather school on a Viking sea voyage that grades in cold. Cross seas arrive, like two orchestras playing different songs at the same tempo. One set comes from yesterday's storm, the other from tomorrow's opinion. The bow tries to dance. You teach it to sway with one and nod to the other. Hips become translators, knees become diplomats. Pride becomes ballast. Corners are for kitchens. Out here you draw curves only. When the hull hums again, you know the compromise worked. Ice doesn't shout. It whispers in glass syllables along the strings. Spray lands, sticks, grows teeth, and suddenly the rigging has opinions. You scrape with a belaying pin, muttering apologies to numb rope. Lanolin turns your knuckles into allies. You thank sheep with sincerity. The yard creaks, then forgives you because you showed up with warm hands. Small patches now prevent operas later. Ice loves drama you can't afford. Reefing in cold rain is dentistry for clouds. Steady hands win. Ease, gather tie, knot square, tail short. No speeches. Your jaw wants to clench. Your breath tells it a bedtime story instead. The sail shrinks to a stubborn, useful rectangle that respects physics. You test the leech like you test a ladder rung. Twice, then move on. Humility makes the best rope. Weave it into every motion. Bailing becomes cardio with theology. Buckets pass like confessions. We do not keep water. We do not name it. We encourage it overboard. Hank sulks. A wedge soothes. Pitch warms like honesty in a pot. You learn the smell of damp you can live with versus damp that has ambition. The bilge tells jokes in slow drips. You refuse to laugh. Prevention is dull, which is why it works so often. Cold tries to turn hands into decorative objects. You disagree. Mittens off to tie, on to think, hose dry in a pouch, like small miracles. A brick of butter becomes morale you can spread with a knife. Dried fish returns to life in your jaw. Barley bread remembers fields. A mouth of whey keeps thirst from attempting poetry. On a North Atlantic Viking crossing warmth is logistics with a heartbeat. Steering in cross chop is letters written on a moving horse. Pressure comes you exhale, yaw begins, you curve, not correct. A fraction high on the swell shoulder, a fraction low on the next. Your hands stop chasing errors and start preventing them by half breaths. The ship appreciates your foresight, like an old friend with dry humor. When the wake straightens, so does your spine. Fog plus rain plus ice equals an essay in patience. Sight admits it's on holiday. Cheek and ear clock in for overtime. Bell thumps the bow, a heartbeat the world can hear. Raven watches from the yard and blinks, like an experienced editor. Lead line tastes the bottom. Mud, sand, shell. Each a different paragraph. You advance by commas, not chapters, and that's enough. Crew culture becomes central heating you can carry. Short praise for exact deeds, clean reef, true coil, good eye on that set. Oak told once, not 5 times, because breath is currency. We rotate the worst tasks, like saints, sharing relics. A warm hand on a shoulder travels farther than a speech. Discipline is affection in work clothes. Night weather asks if your rituals are real or just nice. Lantern hooded lashings, checked by fingers that don't trust eyes. Watch songs count minutes softer than bells can. You touch the mast, the parrels, the lives beside you, roll call complete. Even fear grows bored when assigned chores. Sleep arrives in thin slices that still taste like victory. Morning is steel grey and a little generous. Ice thins to glitter. The sail shakes off yesterday's mood. We loosen one reef, test the sheet like greeting a wary dog. The hull writes longer, smoother sentences across the swell. You chew quietly, because chewing is gratitude in another language. Progress returns in small, stubborn steps, the only kind that stick. By noon, the rain forgets your name, and the sea remembers your manners. We hang socks under the awning, like flags of a small, damp nation. Tar cools in its pot, honest and ready. Rope dries into better grammar. Birds peel toward a smudge. We're not eager to announce. You taste resin and peat under the salt. Land thinking about saying hello. Next, if you're willing, we'll ride the long conveyor of current toward that hint of coastline and test whether your caution can row faster than your curiosity. Currents don't carry flags. They carry you, if you let them with dignity. You feel it first in the steering oar, pressure that arrives before logic. A chip of wood tells the truth faster than pride. Watch it slide sideways. Now you aim not at where you're going, but up current of who you want to be. Think of degrees as coins. Pay a little angle now. Avoid bankruptcy later. This is the quiet math that keeps a Viking sea voyage honest. The ocean owns avenues you can't see, but your ribs can. Long swell from the west, hums like freight. Short chop nags like gossip. Layer them and a road appears, a lane your keel prefers without asking. You steer to the hum, not the nag, and the wake straightens like a promise. When doubt arrives, breathe on the troughs and listen on the crests. If the song returns, your course is good. If it stutters, change the verse. Whales are signposts with heartbeat and opinions. Pilot, whales roll like commas. Along isotherms that bend toward land. Finbacks cruise edges where cold and warm shake hands and barter fish. Follow, don't chase. Their highways cross yours without apology. When a tale lifts its punctuation, period for you, exclamation for them. On a North Atlantic Viking, crossing respect, travels farther than speed. Birds write maps, no scribe can fake. Gannets dive over shelves. Full Mars loaf where nothing matters. Puffins commute like clerks. A land bird panting on your yard is a compass you can feed but not keep. Their flight lines braid toward a smudge. You pretend not to see it. Count how often wings choose left of swell. That's a margin note worth heeding. When routes converge, you're near more than rumour. Colour is geography after it dissolves into water. Iron grey turns bottle green, where weed thickens its accent. Tea brown means river mouths and sand that wants to meet your keel. Blue so clean it squeaks is deep water with no interest in you. You read A Mile Ahead by tasting the palette, changing under the bow. Painters and pilots share one rule. Mix before you commit. Smell travels faster than sight when the world is wet. Resin under the salt, says conifers. Not myths, peat is a river writing letters. Kelp adds its brass section. When shelves lift toward daylight, dead calm has its own odour, linen and boredom, and a hint of worry. You catalogue the air like a librarian who grew up on boats. When a note repeats, you file it under steer slightly starboard. Temperature is a finger test you can do with a face. Cold drafts across your cheek, mean edges, fronts that move like politics. A degree here, a degree there. You sketch borders on your jaw. Fish scale sparkle changes with water mass, so does your luck. If breath fog's thicker on one tack, the air's telling you it's family tree. Believe the body, it has fewer reasons to lie. The sun becomes a clock. You don't wind, but still obey. At noon you cheat the shadow onto a board scratched with seasons. Clouds cheat. The sunstone quietly refuses their drama. Turn the crystal till glare kneels, mark the angle, adjust the world. Call it folklore if you like. Accuracy doesn't care about insults. Navigation is faith married to repetition. Currents wrap islands like rumours, some helpful, some with teeth. Leeward eddies give gifts, and then send bills in barnacles and delay. Windward streams promise speed and sneak you toward teeth. You can't afford. We split the difference, a cable's length off, letting both feel seen. The steering oar stops sulking when diplomacy lands. Compromise looks boring and spends like safety. Food pacing becomes tide work too. Small bites on the hour keep hands honest and tempers employed. Barley bread butter the colour of August, dried fish that remembers a river. Whey for thirst, skyer for bones. Nothing heroic, everything cumulative. Eat before you're hungry. Drink before you're eloquent. Rest before you're clever. Endurance is just logistics with manners. Culture aboard is the lubricant that keeps angles cheap. Praise in specifics flows like oil. True coil, clean reef, good eye on the set. A joke told once is warmth, told thrice its wind, told 5 times its weather. We rotate misery, bailer, bow watch, ice scraping, so no one marries a task. The raven gets fed before arguments. Bribery's an ancient science. A warm hand on a shoulder outperforms sermons in all seas. Evening returns with a slower pulse and a longer sentence for the keel. Birds peel shoreward. The water grows tea-browned at the edges of thought. You taste pine under salt and pretend you don't for 1 more mile. Sail eases oars, ship the hull writes in cursive instead of caps. You chew quietly because chewing is gratitude in another language. Somewhere ahead, surf is rehearsing. We'll listen without rushing when it starts to speak. You see it first in your wanting, not your eyes. A smudge you promote to shore. Hunger adds cliffs. Fatigue adds trees. The heart paints harbours it hasn't earned. Breathe once like a grown-up. Let the bow keep writing present tense. We test the rumour, not embrace it. Slow a touch, ease the sheet, listen. On a Viking sea voyage, imagination is weather. Treat it with respectful doubt. Hold a fine compass only after it learns arithmetic. Fogbanks cosplay as islands with confidence and excellent costumes. Edges look too clean, shadows too loyal, birds too conveniently helpful. We judge by behaviour, not wish. Does the island drift with swell or wind? If its angle keeps changing to face us, congratulate the fog on its acting. Bell to the bow league line, ready patience promoted to officer rank. You advance by commas, not paragraphs. Commas keep ships alive. Mirage does the opposite. Lifts coast into the sky like a cheap miracle. Refraction bends light over cold layers, stacking beaches into floating kingdoms. If land hovers with a gap of shining lie beneath, call it theatre. We mark bearing weight. 10 minutes. Mark again. Truth refuses quick costume changes. Let angles age before you marry them to decisions. The sea rewards adults who date their conclusions slowly. Birds are better witnesses than eyes that miss hot soup. Seabirds keep the same altitudes and errands regardless of your dreams. A tired thrush on the yard is law. A storm petrel is poetry only. Watch flight lines. Do they braid toward a fixed point or unwind with your wake? An Itzaro dives over shelves with rent due. Shelves don't hover. When birds disagree with fog, escort the birds to court. Colour tells on liars faster than speeches do. Bottle green grows from depth to shelf. Tea brown writes river mouths without shame. Pewter that stays pewter while shore approaches is a con artist. We haul the sunstone tea's glare until direction kneels to clarity. Then we test by smell. Resin, peat, kelp, or just linen-scented nothing. 2 senses, agreeing beat 1 sense, bragging every time. Sound betrays, fakes the way a nervous fender does. Surf has rhythm and geometry. Fog applause is formless and everywhere. We stop talking so our ears can earn their keep. Count the sets between booms. Real shores keep appointments. Illusions flake. If the beat wanders like a drunk, you're dating vapor. If it lands like a drummer with rent due shorten sail and think. Lead line with tallow is the oldest lie detector on water. Mud kisses, sand tickles, shell scrapes truths into your palm. Deep stays deep under mirage. Shoal saunters toward honest land. We sound in a fan port bow, starboard, drawing a blind man's chart. Numbers don't flirt, they propose. When the bottom speaks in syllables you recognize, you're allowed to feel things. Currents around real land behave like bouncers with rules. Said leans across mouths. Eddies lounge behind heads, surface wrinkles where stone frowns. Your steering oar feels premonitions. Pressure arrives before scenery does. A fake coast won't nudge your keel with policy. We aim slightly up current of our intention because honesty costs degrees. Payment now is cheaper than repairs later. Crew discipline prevents expensive hallucinations. We assign a skeptic at the bow, an optimist at the sheet, a clerk at the ledger. The skeptic speaks first. The ocean prefers their tone. Praise exact deeds, good sound, true bearing, clean count, not vibes. We rotate appetites away from decisions. Hunger votes late, if at all. Leadership here is temperature control for minds. If doubt persists, we heave to and make time our consultant. Sail reefed, bow at a courteous angle to the swell's politics. Mark the bearing to land, against a board, then let the ship breathe. If the number drifts with wind, you've been flirting with architecture made of air. If it holds while sound grows honest, prepare your mercy and your maps. Waiting is not cowardice, it's rent for tomorrow. When truth finally steps forward, it does so modestly. Bird roots converge, smell sharpens, colour chooses a side. Sound keeps its appointments. Your lead finds sand that remembers rivers and shells that remember cliffs. Only then do we ease toward commitment, oars ready as brakes, pride muzzled. The North Atlantic Viking crossing tests, not your courage, but your proofreading. Real land forgives caution, false land punishes poetry. Even after land admits itself, danger concentrates in the last 100 yards. Bars, rips, rebound swell, hospitality with knives as promised. Gigandawa. But you're calmer now, because you exercised your wishful thinking first. Feet find shingle, keel kisses earth, the hull sighs like a tired tree. You grin, not because you're brave, but because you were boring correctly. And just beyond this safe beach waits the next lesson. Coastal weather traps that turn noon into night in 10 heartbeats. Want me to keep this cadence? The coast smiles until it doesn't. Headlands funnel wind, cliffs forge it, valleys ambush it. You're sailing in sunlight, then the water darkens like a mood you forgot to feed. Cat's paws run ahead, like children with bad news and excellent lungs. Air smells of wet stone and resin. Temperature drops a step with intent. On a Viking sea voyage, the shoreline is a magician with sharp cards. Believe the trick, and you'll clap. Question it, and you'll live. Sea breeze flips to land, breeze the way a coin chooses a face. You watch the cat's paws align in streets that went there a minute ago. Sail slats, then snaps. The steering oar gets opinionated without asking. Ease sheet. Bear away one finger, reef a hand before pride files an appeal. Shorebirds flatten to the water like commas before a long sentence. Everything says, change, in a language you're now fluent in. Cold falls off the high country like a spilled river, katabatic, blunt and fast. It tastes glacier cold, smells like clean knives, and makes wool feel theoretical. Gusts descend in slabs. The rig shivers as if remembering an argument. Reef deeper than feels necessary. Future you will send thanks with warm fingers. Keep the bow a breath off the gust's shoulder, never square to its jaw. You don't beat a falling wind. You escort it past. Willials unroll from cliff faces like invisible carpets with bad manners. Water ahead crumples to cat's fur. Behind, a plume of spray writes your warning. You count 3 heartbeats, then steer. Curves, not corrections. Corners invite drama. Sheet runs clean through the hand, never locked, never sulking. Or looms kiss the gunwale. Crew leans as one choir without lyrics. When it passes, you shake once, not twice. Vanity breaks gear. Gust fronts announce themselves with a charcoal line sketched on water. That line travels. You reef while it's still discussing terms, not enforcing them. Boom-centered, palliard honest parrels convinced with practical affection. First hit is the loudest. You breathe on it until the sail agrees. If the second arrives rude, you heave to and let grammar save wood. Speed is a luxury. Control is currency. Thunderheads bake inland, then slide seaward with loyally paperwork. Anvil top green underbelly. Air that smells like coins and old rain. Lightning once tall, wet honesty. You're 3 for 3, so get small. Lower the yard, stow the spear in the sky. Keep metal shy and humble. Count flash to boom, call distance. Assign calm like a chore. Rain will pass. Holes in people are less cooperative. Wind over tide grows teeth. You can file by willpower. Against current chop steepens into steps, eager to borrow your keel. Aim a hair, off square, reduce canvas to useful understatement. Let the bow climb, pause, pronounce, then descend with diplomacy. If the wake looks drunk, you're arguing. If it's straight, you're negotiating. Save oars for breaking and apologies, not heroics. Microbursts hide inside rain curtains like punches in bouquets. The world goes white, then sideways. You count instead of swear. Heave to early drogue ready lashings jealous tight and inspected by fingers. Crew clipped by habit, not by speech. Knives sleeping in friendly places. Bailers become metronomes. Buckets pass like confessions. When it eases, you shake one reef and keep the other's wisdom. Shelter is a choice with consequences. Lee shore is hospitality with knives. A fair weather cove turns carnivore when wind shifts in its sleep. Anger to wind, not beauty. Give scope like you actually want to stay. Kedge ready for oops, stern line to rock. If swell rehearses mischief. If doubt speaks twice, wait outside where mistakes cost less. Harbours forgive caution. They prosecute optimism. Communication is your real storm gear. Assign it before the sky auditions. Bow watch calls in nouns, not essays. Line. Plume. Dark water starboard. Helm answers with verbs. Reef. Bear. Heave. Cheek crew repeats, then does. The skeptic gets the bow. The poet gets the bucket. everyone earns heat. Praise specifics, true tie, clean coil, good eye, the room warms. Orders that arrive warm are followed faster with cold hands. After the tantrum, triage becomes lullaby. Hands check lashings by feel. Eyes lie when relief writes the script. Then, pitch warms for seams. Tallow kisses leathers. Pride swallows. One last reef. Socks rotate from the same bag. Sky bribes bones. Way tells thirst to hush. You log cause and cure because memory romanticizes what accuracy feeds. Boats forgive, but ledgers teach. Dusk returns with contrition. You accept, but verify. Clouds lose their edges, birds pick up errands, resin, scent softens. To story, you ease a palm on the mast, and it answers in honest wood. The horizon stops auditioning for roles. It can't play. You sleep because choreography beat chaos, not because luck blinked. At first light will chase a long swell toward a rumour of new coast. Currents turning, birds braiding, and the quiet ache of a North Atlantic Viking, crossing done correctly. Salt turns little cuts into opera singers, and rope loves fresh skin, like a patron. Before pride writes checks, we tape the knuckles and bless the thumbs. A knife lives where a blind hand expects it. Blades sleep in known beds. You learn to lift lines, with palms not fingers, like greeting a prickly uncle. Tar keep seams honest, and also finds splinters you didn't know you own. On a Viking sea voyage, prevention is warmer than bravery every single time. Blisters are apprentices that want promotions. Don't give them management. Lanolin over hot spots, early cloth wraps before the loom bites. Switch oar, hands by a schedule, not by groan. Symmetry is medicine you can't drink. A thin strap at the wrist, steel strained from tendons with opinions. We praise good form like poetry and correct it like taxes. Quiet, relentless. Your back learns curves. Your ego learns silence. Both learn gratitude. Rope burn smells like boiled wool and bad decisions. Water first, then cool air, then grease the colour of sheepish apologies. A strip of clean cloth not tight. We're soothing, not editing circulation. If skin lifts, honey earns its keep. It's sticky mercy with teeth for germs. Hands go back to work, because work is the better painkiller. Still, you marked the loom that did it and adjust your handshake. Splinters are betrayal in miniature. Treat them like spies, not enemies. Clean needle, clean light, clean swear words, then lift the little liar. Rinse with boiled water that cooled to kindness. Dab honey bandage small. We throw the splinter into the sea with a verdict. Trespass. A half-minute of ceremony saves an hour of sulking flesh. On the North Atlantic, Viking crossing tiny wars decide big outcomes. Knife nicks happen when stories get good. We make stories wait. Pinch, lift, press. Cloth drinks red until red grows bored. Rinse only after bleeding says it's done. Cold water is a gossip. If edges, meet politely, honey again. If not, stitch with a sailor's patience. 3 small, neat bites of thread. Not a novel. Pride doesn't need corsetry. We keep the needle in brine. The sea plays doctor better than guesswork. Brains announce themselves like slammed doors in ankles and wrists. We treat with the Holy Trinity. Rest, wrap, and responsibility reassign. A strip of wool makes a bandage. A spare board makes a splint. Pain is a vote, not a law. We listen while still rowing the kingdom. Tasks reshuffle so competence outruns injury without leaving it lonely. You'll steer tonight. Someone else will marry the baler's bucket. Coal chews cartilage first, ears, fingers and toes are its favourite snacks. Warmth comes from layers, then movement, then righteous stubbornness in that order. Mittens off to tie on to think, hose dry live in a saintly pouch. We rub life back with slow strokes, not friction fights. Frostbite likes drama. A brick warmth in a towel visits the feet like a little sun. Stupidity thawed is still stupidity. Next time we choose wiser boots. Sickness rides quiet. Nausea, fever, a cough that wants a throne. We answer with rest slices, warm whey onions, for courage and water that's honest. Honey tames throats. Nettle tea pretends to be a wizard and mostly succeeds. We keep the sick leeward so breath travels where dignity can't hear. No fire on deck. We don't negotiate with embers on wooden tables. Healing is logistics with patience. Miracles are just good timing in costume. That flirt with infection. Smell like weather you should avoid. Red, that spreads heat that argues. Both earn a hotter wash and sterner words. We boil cloth, cool it, and press until the skin remembers manners. If puss auditioned, we evict it. If fever applied, we give it chores and water. Honey again, the ship's sweetest soldier with a grudge against rot. We chart symptoms like tides, because guessing is expensive in bone. Eyes hate smoke and wind. They vote with tears and blurry insults. A rinse of cooled boiled water, shade under the awning, ego in a jar. If grit sneaks in, flip the lid gently, like you mean well. A dab of fat at the brow turns drip into detour. You squint, less see more, and gratitude returns to the horizon. Vision is navigation. Comfort is a bonus we accept greedily. Mind injuries hide under jokes. We count those too. Fear grows in silence. We starve it with small, exact tasks. Praise specifics like warm coals. True reef, clean sound, good eye on that set. Stories at watch change, short and kind. Stitch morale, tighter than rope. A hand on a shoulder is medicine, so is permission to breathe weird for a minute. Crew that heals together rows straighter when weather auditions. End of day. We hold clinic by lantern and ledger. Hands open like books, feet confess, shins submit evidence. Tar cools in the pot like a sermon finished. Needles sleep in brine. We thank sheep, bees and barley more than the gods tonight. On this Viking Sea Voyage survival is a chorus of small accurate habits. And tomorrow, when the wind writes in a rougher font, your body will answer in legible script. Want me to keep this cadence for the next chapter? Night doesn't fall at sea. It rises, one bright pin at a time, until the whole roof is honest. You feel the longship breathe slower timber, lowering its voice to match the swell. Lantern hooded, talk trimmed ears wide. The dark is a teacher with soft shoes. On a Viking sea voyage you learn, navigation starts where staring becomes seeing. Cold noses point true, warm pride gets left on shore. You taste salt tar and a little fear and call it focus. Polaris is a nail, patient and almost bored with your drama. Find the Big Dipper, slide through the bowls, far edge 5 times, arrive at stay. Cassiopeia sprawls opposite like a gilded gossip chair. When one hides, the other tattles. You don't memorize art, you memorize angles your cheek can keep. Latitude becomes a habit, fist at arm's length, knuckles counting degrees like rent. The sky stops being poetry and starts paying invoices. Stars drift west, but not all at once. You track their schedules like ferries. Orion's belt times your watch. Pleiades whisper, winter work, and vanish early. When cloud shrouds the popular ones, you court the plain stars no one brags about. They keep better appointments and don't flinch at weather speeches. You mark bearings on a little board, scratches that feel like vows. Accuracy is warmth. Vagueness is wind. Overcast. You bring out the quiet crystal that argues with clouds. Iceland spar, sunstone, filters sky glare into two obedient beams. Rotate till the twin lights match. Where they agree, the hidden sun signs. You don't shout the answer. You feed it to the steering oar like a treat. The crew nods because good news whispered lasts longer. Folklore is just science with excellent manners. Dark water speaks if you stop interrupting. Long swell hums from storms you'll never meet. Chop tattles about local tantrums. Align the bow a hair off the dominant note, and the keel stops sulking. If the wake scribbles, you're lecturing. If it cursives, you're listening. We steer curves, never corners. Corners spill tea and men. The sea prefers diplomacy. So do ribs. Bioluminescence writes footnotes under your hull in green handwriting. Oar blades leave comets. Dolphins stitch runes you're not smart enough to read. A sudden bloom means stirred plankton. A steady glow hints at warm veins of water. You log it with a grin. Data with a sense of theatre. Even fear smiles when the sea signs its name in light. The night turns from enemy to editor. Sound carries farther now. You learn to hear distances. Surf booms, in counted sets, cliff falls, slap river mouths, murmur like kettles. A bird's call thins with miles. Bells thicken with fog like soup. We shut up to let our ears earn their ration. When the pattern repeats, we steer toward the beat, not the wish. Rhythm outlives eyesight on a North Atlantic Viking crossing. Cold tries to steal fingers first. We bribe them with tasks. Reef ties, checked by touch. Lashings kissed with tallow, seams patted like friendly dogs. A warming stone rides in a cloth. One pass for hands, one for feet. We rotate bow watch, so no one marries the wind too long. Socks stay dry in a scent bag. Pride stays quiet in the log. Warm is a verb, not a state. Watches flow like hymns you can hum without thinking. 2 hours steering, 2 at oars, 2 telling the bilge the bad news. Songs count minutes, verses end where turns begin. Breath keeps tempo. A joke told once travels farther than a speech. Praise in specifics, true bearing, clean coil, good eye on that set. Morale turns into accuracy. Accuracy turns into sleep. Clouds shove the constellations aside. You steer by absence. When the wind veers warm a cheek, a front has opinions you'll soon share. Swell crosses grudgingly. You compromise with hips, not hands. A raven sleeps, unimpressed. You envy its theology. Then waits with tallow. Truth on a string, older than poetry. If mud kisses soon, you reconsider confidence politely. Some nights the sky throws gifts, aurora, waking like silk, torn slow. Green curtains ripple. Red edges hint at storm's sunside. You'll never see. Beautiful, yes, and useless for bearings except as a weather rumour. So you look, breathe, thank, and return to Polaris, who never glitters for applause. Or is allowed. Decisions still eat breakfast on time. We keep wonder in one hand, and the steering oar in the other. Near dawn, the east bruises to pewter, then mercy. Stars fade like honest actors after curtain. The sea clears its throat. You cheek the sun with the board, scratch a fresh angle, and your jaw relaxes. Coffee doesn't live here. Discipline does, tasting faintly of butter and barley. The longship hums a lower note. The wake straightens like a plan. And as daylight edits the world back in, you're ready to chase smell, birds and colour toward whatever rumour of coast decides to become real. Next. Headwinds don't argue, they veto. The sail slats like a door that won't stay shut, and pride volunteers to row first. You learn fast. Speed up wind is built from patience, angles, and smaller wishes. We reef to a useful rectangle, and trim till luffing turns into listening. Leeway steals degrees. You budget angles like coins. On a Viking Sea Voyage, progress against no is just better bookkeeping. Close-hauled in this hull isn't romance. It's geometry with wet shoes. We sheet the wool, tight enough to believe, not tight enough to sulk. Bow a hand off the true wind, steering curves tiny as courtesy. Keel writes half letters. You finish the word with oars. Our weight tells on us. Straight means clever, scrawl means stubborn. When the sail hums low, you're paying in the right currency. Tacking is choreography, not applause. Ready a bow, bow hand to sheet, stern to steering, crew to their lines. Helm over smooth, sail backs a heartbeat, bow crosses the wind like a polite thief. Sheet in on the new side before pride spots the hole. We lose a little in the turn and win it back in rhythm. To it's sloppy, and the ocean collects interest loudly. Oars become the quiet engine you promised to respect. Indeed, the lot to respect. Short strokes, many counted like bead prayers. 2 minutes hard, 1 easy. We rotate pairs, so blisters share surnames with everyone. Loft a loom with your back, not your fury. Fury spends calories wrong. Salt stings, lungs, argue, rhythm, forgives. When the bow stops stuttering, thank the choir. Fatigue math is the only math that never lies. You don't chase 1 heroic hour, you buy 10 decent ones. Food every watch, barley bread, a thumb of butter, dried fish that tells the truth. Way keeps thirst civil, sky is bones accountant. Dry socks are morale. You can wear mittens on for thinking. Endurance is logistics disguised as kindness to future you. Leeway eats dreams sideways, we budget for it like weather tax. Steer a hair high to the mark so drift lands you on it. If chop gets rude, we ease a finger and stop arguing. Sail too flat and the ship sulks. Too full and she gossips downwind. Find the narrow grin where both of you stay friends. Your jaw unclenches when the wake agrees. Headlands test the plan with cliffs that own the wind. We tack in long legs, short returns, using eddies like allies with small print. Slip under a lee where gusts forget your name. When tide leans wrong, we wait. Patience is distance you'll spend later. A raven blinks like a metronome. We follow its boredom. Boring boats get home more often. Crew culture turns against into alongside. We praise exact deeds, clean tack, true sheet, steady loom. Jokes happen once, twice is wind, 5 times is mutiny. A warm hand on a shoulder moves farther than a speech. The skeptic gets the bow, the poet brings water. Everyone rows, nobody auditions. Weather bribes you with short lulls. Take them without falling in love. Shake a hand of reef, only if the lull keeps its promise. 1 finger on the sheet, ready to apologize fast. We hold course a hair high and bank any gift in degrees. White of film. If the lull lies, we reef back without sighs. Energy saved now, we'll pass midnight without tripping. Maintenance mid-grind is how gear remembers to help. Oar leathers drink tallow. Lashings get the suspicious friends stare. A loom whining is tomorrow's blister. Fix the tone, fix the hand. Pitch warms. For a seam that picked today to confess. We change nothing dramatic. We polish the small frictions. Small frictions sink big plans when no one's watching. Mind tricks keep the spine honest. Count strokes to a song. Swap singers, each 100. Name waves you like, and ignore the ones auditioning for villain. Breathe in 4s, out in 6s, matching the keel's quiet grammar. Trade the tiller before your temper gets adjectives. Twang. A steady crew beats a passionate one in headwinds. By dusk the mark sits where it should. Upwind, closer, finally possible. We ease for a kinder angle, shake one reef, and let the hull exhale. Oars ship, shoulders thank rope. The sail writes longer sentences. You chew slowly, because chewing is gratitude with teeth. Somewhere beyond this earned mile, the North Atlantic Viking crossing changes, fonts again. And when it does, currents turning, weather blinking, we'll spend what we saved today without going broke. You smell trouble before you name it. Resin sharpened by spray, surf booming with appointments. Wind shoves from behind, not kindly but insistently, and the coast stops pretending to be art. Waves stand upon short legs and slap each other, like quarrelsome brothers. The sail hums wrong. The steering oar grows heavy with other people's opinions. You feel the keel start writing sentences you didn't authorize. This is when a Viking Sea Voyage teaches humility with exclamation points. First you admit it's a lee shore, wind driving you onto teeth you can't afford. Gulls hover in place, kelp knots tug, and the colour turns tea-brown over sneaky bars. Breakers feather unevenly, gaps that breathe, walls that don't. Geometry with malice. Current leans across the mouth like a bouncer. Your wake scribbles its confession. Hope suggests hero angles. Experience checks the bill and shakes its head. You choose beaching, not bravado, because tomorrow deserves guests. We shrink the sail to a useful truth. Double reef, then another if pride still argues. Ease, sheet, till the luff whispers, then silence it with a patient inch. Lower the yard half a man, parrels snug. Halyard honest, nothing left to improvise. Oars out but feathered, breaks not boasts, ready to write smaller words in water. Sea anchor on standby, if the set tries to marry rocks in a hurry. Every knot you tie here replaces a speech later. Crew becomes choreography with no solos. Bow team, poles, helmets, lines, coiled like polite snakes. Midship, bailers, spare thwarts ready to shove, eyes counting sets aloud. Stern steering, or our short leash, yard under control. Knife where blind hands expect. One voice calls verbs, not novels. Reef, hold, wait, now. Praise exact deeds, accuracy, heats hands faster than speeches. Pick your street through the breakers by behaviour, not beauty. Find the darker lane where foam forgets to brag and water inhales. Instead of shouts, watch 3 sets, count their tempers, memorize the lazy fourth. Avoid where white water stacks with no punctuation. That's where stories end. If a river breathes out, use its polite exhale. Sand there remembers manners. The North Atlantic Viking crossing pays well for patience at the door. Approach high on the set's shoulder, not square to its jaw. Bear off a breath, then straighten as the wave lifts. Oars ready, sheet kissing your palm. Ride the back, slide the trough, and let the next crest push without adopting you. 2 strokes ahead of the break you ease, and let the hull choose softness. If she yaws, correct in curves, never corners. Corners spill men and luck. Your ribs remember the count, better than your mouth. At first white water, unship the steering board before sand eats its hinge. Oars down, as breaks, tips biting, looms steady shoulders, humble. Bow jumps when feet feel honesty. Shingle not slime, angle not lie. Lines ashore fast, bow to a buried anchor, stern to a friend with good knees. Keel kisses land, then tries to back out. You disagree kindly with weight. Shingle hisses like a critic. You ignore it and do your job. Now keep the sea from repossessing your boat in the next 5 minutes. Turn her bow a hair to the sets, enough to drink the push without swallowing. Cage off the quarter to stop the cock-tip dance that breaks ribs. Pay out scope like you actually want to keep her. Anchors are dogs, short leashes make biters. If the beach is steep, crib under the keel with fenders, spars, anything that forgives. You are buying time in rope and sweat. Pay generously. Men first, then gear, then pride, always in that order. Count heads, then count fingers, then count the jokes that still work. Wet through, strip and lay a dry wool under any cloak that volunteers. Hot stones wrapped in cloth become saints for feet you'd like to keep. Sweet drink before speeches, barley bread before heroes. Hypothermia hates logistics. Make it read your ledger. Salvage without drama. Drama feeds the tide. Move the heavy first, casks high, weapons higher, tar where embers can flirt. Rig the sail as a windbreak, the mast as a centre pole, the yard as dignity. Fire lives downwind in a shallow scrape. Sparks don't get to vote on canvas. A watch goes up because land has thieves with legs and weather. You sleep near the hull, so her dreams don't wander. Tide is a contract you read with a stick and a suspicious mind. Mark the last wet line. Mark it again 10 breaths later. Learn the slope's grammar. If water's rising, crib higher, add scope, and stop promising yourself miracles. If it's falling, plan your refloat. Rollers ready, crew fed, sets counted. Push on the lazy fourth. Sing low to keep knees honest and timing clean. When she floats, she forgives. When she grinds, she keeps receipts. After the scare, you write the ledger that keeps future you alive. What warned first? Smell, colour, birds, or wake? And when did you listen? Which knot stuck, which word landed, which habit paid interest in breath? You thank specifics. True throw, clean bowline. Good call on the lazy set. Courage is fine, procedure is warmer. And when the wind behaves and the beach releases its claim, you'll lift the yard, square the world, and slide back into the wide sentence. Blue miles waiting, whales commuting, and a horizon that's already pretending it didn't try to eat you. Dawn smells like kelp tea and wet wood. The surf keeps appointments you can set a watch by. Sand cold through the soles, wool damp at the cuffs. You walk the line where last night stopped you. We're not stuck, we're negotiating. Polite voices, strong backs, no poetry before breakfast. On a Viking Sea Voyage, the morning after is when bragging gets replaced by arithmetic. Count waves, count hands, count the tools you wish you'd sharpened yesterday. Then breathe. Ships feel panic and file it under extra friction. First, you read the beach like a ledger. Slope decides how generous the tide will be. Grain size decides how honest your footing is. Shingle hisses where sets fail. A darker lane breathes where water returns favours. You scratch tide marks with a stick and watch which one wins the argument. If sea is climbing the wall, you smile. If it's sulking away, you plan longer. Either way, timing will be your warmest blanket. Lighten her without turning it into theatre. Casks first, then cargo that bruises pride, then anything that forgives gravity poorly. Stack high on the safe line. Anchor those stacks like you mean to see them again. Weapons sleep under cloaks. Tar lives where sparks don't audition. You keep a running tally in your head. Wait out means hope in. Food last. Hungry brains make bad mathematicians. Or now, the rollers. Good, round, and many. Oars too precious. Use spars, drifts, even a mast dub if you must. Ships forgive ingenuity. Lay a path from stern downhill to tomorrow, like vertebrae for a wooden animal. Bed the first roller under her ribs with patient hands, not kicks. When she breathes with the wave, you slip the next under, then the next. Rhythm over muscle. Cadence beats shouting 9 times out of 10. Rig the kedge like you're writing your future in rope. Small anchor out on a long scope to where water remembers being deep. A team hauls the kedge line in time with sets, not against them. Haul on the long rest, on the short. Let the sea do unpaid labour. Every arm length you steal is interest compounded at noon. Knots are nouns today. Verbs live in your shoulders. Steering board off unlashed. You won't feed oak to sand today. 2 poles ready at the bow to argue gently with sideways thoughts. Stern lines lead like handrails. Nobody falls in love with surprise. One voice calls verbs, haul, hold, walk, stop, because novels sink ships. The skeptical mind gets the bow. The optimistic one fetches water. Praise exact deeds. Accuracy is central heating. Wave sets are your drumline. You move when the lazy fourth nods. On the lift you haul and chant. In the trough you settle and smile. If she slews, you correct with curves only. Corners spill saints and sinners both. Rollers come forward as fast as joy. Spent ones walk to the stern. Bailers stand by because progress sweats from everywhere. The hull sighs in vowels when momentum joins the crew. If sand grabs ankles hard, switch the plan, warp her. Run a line from bow to a side, anchor set at a decent angle. Haul the bow a breath toward open water, while the stern minds manners. Trade sides like dancers with good knees and honest shoes. No heroics, you're moving a house that believes it's a fish. When she shifts, everyone feels it in their teeth first. Tide finally keeps its promise. Water under, not just around. We keep hauling, but smaller kinda, as buoyancy remembers our names. Rollers float free like compliments. You thank them and steal them back. A swirl under the stern means the sea just invited you to leave. You decline extra speeches and accept. Oars out as brakes. Nobody sprints into the first mistake of the day. Re-rig the yard low, then test the sheet like greeting a wary dog. Sail tiny at first, a useful rectangle that respects physics. We back her gently to clear sand teeth, then bear away on a courteous angle. Oars, feathered, looms steady men quiet. Noise confuses judgment. Once the sets talk behind us instead of at us, we breathe. Then one reef shakes. Not to. Patient still, has minutes left to lend. Outside the break, you turn gratitude into housekeeping. Scope in kedge. Uplines coiled like tidy thoughts. Cargo returns aboard in reverse order. Pride near the bottom as ballast. Tarpot, warm lashes, checked steering board rehung with a thank you. You drink something sweet so decisions don't get cheap. Crew counts fingers, then jokes, then breaths. Ledger balanced. By noon the beach is a story you'll undertell, and the sea is open grammar again. Birds braid toward a coast that isn't trying to eat you. Colour deepens to bottle green. You mark the tide lesson in the log with words. You'll remember when tired. The North Atlantic Viking crossing resumes. Hum in the keel, wind on the cheek, confidence trimmed small enough to live. You didn't conquer anything. You collaborated with timing and wood. Next we'll talk long swells from storms you'll never meet and what they do to your plans when you're days from any shore. Swell is weather written days ago in a handwriting. You can still feel. Lines of water arrive orderly, older than the wind, currently gossiping. Period is the sentence length. Direction is the argument. Height is the tone. You kneel to the rail and count between crests like a monk doing math. Long period means deep power with good manners. Short means bickering. On a Viking sea voyage, you learn to steer by rumours that keep their promises. When the swell outruns today's wind, the ship wants 2 leaders. You give the keel to the swell and the sail to the breeze. Bow a breath off square so the ribs hum instead of clatter. Steering oar works in curves smaller than pride and larger than panic. Hands stop correcting and start anticipating by half-breaths. Harmony arrives when wake lines turn from scribble to cursive. Sets reveal themselves like choirs, 3 loud verses, 1 gentle refrain. We time jobs for the lazy fourth, reef ties, drinking a quick word that matters. On the strong 3 you hold course and let your jaw unclench by discipline. If the set grows teeth, you angle up a hair, not a headline. We praise the helmsman who moves least and thinks most. Economy of motion keeps energy in pockets you'll need at dusk. Quartering seas, try to borrow your stern for art. You didn't commission. We shift weight forward, a touch, trim the leech until it stops gossiping. Drogue ready in case rhythm becomes ambition with consequences. You ride the shoulder, not the face of the wave that wants attention. Curves, not corners. Corners spill soup and men. When the yaw shrinks, you call it good and don't narrate the victory. Beam swell bangs like a door in wind if you let it. We ease sheet a whisper, accept a slower number for a quieter hull. Benches get pads, looms get kinder, hands jokes get shorter. Sometimes a 5-degree detour buys 10 degrees of sleep later. Comfort is speed's accountant. Pay small now, save large tomorrow. Your spine reports back that wisdom is warmer than hurry. Head sea swell is the tax you pay for stubborn goals. Shorten to a useful rectangle, let the bow climb and pronounce each crest. Momentum is gold. Don't spend it on unnecessary angles. We back off throttle, oars as punctuation, not prose. If the hull starts to slam consonants, you're reading too fast. Slow the sentence until the planks agree with your diction. Down sea is tempting. Fast miles with hidden invoices. Surf the back, not the lip. Keep speed just under the point of comedy. Steering oar, low and ready sheet in your palm, like a friendly leash. If the stern begins to pass the bow, you've been promoted to student. One firm curve, not a flinch, resets the story. The best rides are the ones nobody on shore claps, for period changes tell you news from far storms you won't meet. Longer gaps and fatter backs mean wind has eased somewhere meaningful. Shorter, steeper packets hint at fresh trouble marching over the horizon. We log times like tides. 12 counts, 12 again, patterns becoming policy. The raven even seems to nod when the count goes kind. Data makes better pillows than hope on a North Atlantic Viking crossing. Cargo stole follows the music you're hearing underfoot. Heavy low and amidships when you face the beat, slightly aft when you run. A loose cask is a liar. We make it honest with wedges and attention. Or bundles get crossed to stop their private adventures. A ship that doesn't rearrange itself mid-swell saves voices and tar. Order is warmth, disguised as tidiness. Crew rotation syncs with the sea's metronome, not the sun's vanity. 2 watches split the strong set, 1 rests during the refrain. Food lands before the loud, 3 not during. Nobody chews drama. Then barley, then the dried fish that remembers rivers. Praise exact deeds, clean hand on the yaw, good timing on the set. Owl rises when the boat stops auditioning for percussion. Landfall planning begins miles out with what the swell argues. If lines bend toward a certain quarter, a headland is shaping the paragraph. Surf sound thickens on one ear before the other. Point your skepticism there. We choose bars where sets have honest breaks and gutters that actually breathe. The colour shifts to tea near rivers to bottle green over shelves. Swell is the rumour, shoreline is the source. You listen to both before deciding. By evening, the sea sentences lengthen then fade to footnotes. You shake one reef if manners hold, or you don't and feel cleverer. Socks dry under the awning, like flags of a small competent nation. Tar warms, then sleeps, ropes coil like thoughts that behave themselves. You choose slowly. Gratitude translated into barley and butter. Tomorrow we'll talk skywriting again, reading cloud streets, gull altitudes, and why a sudden smell of peat at noon means the map just changed its mind. Cloud streets line up like lanes on an unseen highway, and you steer by their grammar. Parallel bands mean a wind aloft agreeing with the water below. Sail under the darker lanes, there where lift keeps its promises. Gaps say, don't bother, streaks say, hurry now, not later. On a Viking sea voyage, the sky is a map you don't fold. You read it with cheek, not just eyes, and trim with your jaw unclenched. Mare's tails, a quill's writing future wind from the west. High, thin cirrus, hook like fish, tomorrow's blow filing notice. If they thicken into a milky shield, reef talk turns into reef action. Mackerel sky, mackerel sea. Small scales today, bigger teeth tonight. We log tilt, height, spread. Cloud bookkeeping that pays in wood. Beauty is invited, decisions still bring the ink. Gull altitude is your free barometer with feathers. When they cruise high and lazy pressure, smiles and timings, cheap. If they skim wave tops, something heavy is leaning on the world. Birds raft on the lee of your wake when rain rehearses. Follow their errands, not their charm. Errands bend better. Low ceiling of wings means humility should reef early. Full Mars loaf where nothing matters. Gannets only dive where shelves pay rent. Storm petrels dance on whitecaps like accountants, always near honest trouble. Puffins commute in straight lines that reveal bait and edges. A landbird panting on your yard is a compass asking for crumbs. Ravens judge from the yard and blink when you finally agree. All of them brief you faster than rumours in port. Smell gets there first, because salt loves to carry gossip. Resin under the brine says forests within a day's patience. Peat at noon is a river mouth, writing you a brown-green invitation. Kelp adds brass to the air, where shelves climb toward daylight. Fish oil hints at harbours. Smoke means people who count things. You steer a degree, not a speech, and the nose grins. Halos around sun or moon make rings you should not ignore. A clean thin circle announces ice aloft and weather inbound. A smeared, thick halo means fronts shoving paperwork your way. Count stars through the ring. Fewer stars, nearer trouble. We shorten sail while boasting is still cheap to silence. The North Atlantic Viking crossing rewards early refers, not brave postmortems. Pressure talks through wood, wool, and old knees. The mast groans higher when air lightens. Benches creak lower when it drops. Lanolin spreads differently in cold. That's thinking about snow. Breath fog changes font before the wind changes mind. Someone's scar starts a weather briefing with rude accuracy. We believe the aches and quietly rearrange the day. Colour turns oracle at the bookends of light. A bruised purple west at dusk means a script rewrite overnight. Red sky at morning doesn't rhyme for fun. It bills in chop. Greenish undersides on anvils taste like coins. Lightning rehearsals. Pearl grey that stays pearl grey is a truce we accept. We sleep closer to reef lines. when the palate sulks. Cumulus that sprout early are toddlers who will throw plates by noon. Small tidy stacks after midday usually mind their manners. Watch for cauliflower heads punching upward with sweaty ambition. When bases darken and curtains trail, you start tying truth to spars. Gust fronts sketch charcoal strokes on water, reef while it's still art. Clouds are generous with drafts, you prepare in canvas. Smoke at sea is a headline with no editor. A flat blue layer says distant chimneys and patient shores. Round pulsing columns mean kilns, smithies, or panic. We steer downwind of politics and upwind of accidents. Ash on the air tastes like stories we don't need to join. Harbour tomorrow, caution today, coin later. All the clues braid into one quiet decision. Cloud streets suggest lanes, birds confirm margins, smell writes footnotes. Pressure and colour edit the draft, sound stamps the approval. We aim a finger wide, not a fist bold, and let angles earn interest. Orders shrink to verbs. Reef, bear, wait, go, and land gets closer by manners. Navigation is courtesy toward forces that don't care, but always notice. By afternoon, the sky stops arguing, and the sea hums in one key. You shake one reef because humility has already been paid. Birds peel shoreward, peat sweetens the wind, the bow writes longer words. We mark the log with small pride and large gratitude. On this Viking Sea Voyage, proof is sensory, not theatrical. And that's why it works. Next, if you like, we'll step ashore and read the beach itself. Dunes, drift lines, and the quiet politics of choosing a camp that won't try to move at midnight. In the end, the ocean never promised fairness, only truth. Night after night, we learned that survival wasn't thunderclaps of heroism, but a quiet stack of habits. Reef early, steer curves, praise specifics, eat before you're hungry, and let patience do the heavy lifting. That's the secret most sagas skip. The boring parts are the bridge between legend and home. As your room settles, and the last wave in your mind slides under the keel, take this with you. Warmth is a verb. Humility is navigation. Attention is shelter. The long blue teaches that small, accurate choices outlast loud, beautiful ones. You didn't conquer the sea tonight. You listened to it, and that's rarer. Tell me in the comments, which moment would have tested you first? The ice on the lines, the false landfall, or the headwind that demanded arithmetic instead of bravery? What habit from these sailors would you borrow for real life tomorrow? And what sound from our voyage, oars, gulls, or that low hum of the wake, helped you drift? This felt like time well spent. Gently tap like subscribe, and turn on notifications so the next passage finds you. No maps needed. Share this with a friend who loves calm storytelling, stormy history, or simply falling asleep to long horizons. Lower the lights one last notch. Inhale for 4, exhale for 6. Let the sail in your chest slacken. I'll be right here when you're ready for the next crossing. Another quiet chapter, another ship, another sky.